Hi everyone, and thank you for turning up this morning for just an update on what's happening with the WBO World Heavyweight title fight between Joseph Parker and Andy Ruiz. To my right is Dean Lonergan, one of the directors of Duco Events. To my left, David Higgins from Duco Events. Now, David and Dean came together in 2009 after the Shane Cameron and David tour fight, and as you all know, it was widely successful. It sparked a passion into them, and they wanted to do 3 boxing events a year. And they shared a vision to find a young, talented boxer who would commit to a long-term plan to challenge for the heavyweight championship of the world. And in 2012, as you know, Joseph Parker missed his shot at the Olympic Games. And these guys saw the potential, and this outrageous plan began. This opportunity that presents itself to us did not fall out of the sky. It has been done by design. They've surrounded themselves with outrageously talented people. Obviously Martin Sneddon and Kevin Barry are two that you know, but it would be remiss of me not to mention the sensational job that our girls do on those events that you come to. They are absolute superstars, the staff that they've surrounded themselves by. New Zealand has never had a heavyweight champion. It's never had a heavyweight title fight in New Zealand. All this has happened in just 3 years. It's unprecedented, it's unique. I was just talking to these guys this morning and saying 2 years ago in the Brian Minto fight on 2014, Joseph wasn't even ranked in any of the 4 sanctioning bodies. It's been an absolute whirlwind. Now this will be an all-in press conference. There'll be no one-on-ones, and no one will be commenting from Duco for the rest of the day and likely tomorrow either. I'm going to hand it over to Dean Lonergan to say a few words.
All right. Look, it's, you're well aware we did put an application into Major Events New Zealand, and we've studied the reaction of the public and the media and the politicians, and it's clear it has become political dynamite, a real political football. So we're aware our business does rely on public goodwill. We're selling tickets, we're selling pay-per-view television, we rely on the public, and that goodwill is important. We do not take it for granted. It's a shame to see that it's become divisive. We think this event, if it does happen in New Zealand, should be inclusive and certainly not divisive. It should be celebrating a landmark New Zealand sporting achievement and also New Zealand's event capability.
So on the back of what David just said, we've decided to withdraw our application to Major Events New Zealand. We'd like to thank Stephen Joyce and his team for contemplating what we had put forward, but as of now, we're taking it out.
So that means to hold the event in Auckland is going to be pretty tough, and so things are up in the air. I would say that in the past, Dean Lonergan and I have rolled the dice on some big, risky-looking things. The Downer NRL Auckland Nines, as an example, was new and risky. It's become quite a success. There's the David Tour Shane Cameron fight that Craig mentioned, Richard Branson in Auckland, the Brisbane Tens. So we're not immune to risky ventures. So
we're going to go away over the weekend and continue the work we've been doing, obviously for the last few months, but also for the last 3 years. We're going to have a look at our financial modelling yet again, try and delve deeper into it. I guess by ruling out any government involvement, it cuts down one stream of revenue for us. So, you know, last week or earlier this week, I said that there's probably a 70 to 80% chance this is going overseas. We're probably moving closer to 80%, and we need to make some serious decisions on the weekend, and maybe a little bit after that as well.
So what I'm going to do is open it up to open it up to questions. It's really important that you guys understand that we want all of New Zealand behind Joseph Parker, and hopefully with this decision today, all of New Zealand will get behind him, because he is in for one hell of a fight against Andy Ruiz. This is going to be a really, really tough fight, and these guys are absolutely determined to give him the best possible chance of winning this title, because it's never, in their dream, it was never to fight for the world title. It was to win the world title and defend it over and over and over again. So that is still the goal for Duco Events. But we can take your questions now. David and Dean will happy to take your questions.
So how do you raise the money? You need to raise $1 million plus. What are the avenues that are now open to you? I mean, are we talking about big pay-per-view fees, or what's the story?
So there's a range of revenue streams, including sponsorship, corporate hospitality, pay-per-view television, international television. and every revenue stream we're making a judgment call on how big is it going to be, and there's no way of knowing for certain, so there's risk there. And it's up to him and I to make a decision. Are we going to roll the dice like we have in the past, or are we going to take the safe bets and go to the United States?
What do you need to be able to hold it here in New Zealand?
Well, we've talked about a 7-figure amount that we need in sponsorship. It's a significant amount. We're in the business of risk mitigation, you know, on two sides. One, risk mitigation against financial risk, but two, risk mitigation to try and give Joseph Parker the best possible platform to win this thing. And we personally think the best thing is to have it here in New Zealand. And as I've been saying all week, we've got, you know, fiscal responsibilities to firstly our company and then of course to ourselves. So we're going to be, you know, continuing to work with our partners and try and find new partners and look at the modelling on the weekend and see how we go.
What do you think is sponsors?
Just one time.
Are you talking to any major sponsors?
Yeah, obviously.
Sponsors at the moment?
Look, we are talking to major potential sponsors at the moment, but the clock is ticking. Bob Arum's given us until November 5. We're going to Las Vegas. Craig and myself and a couple of media are going to Las Vegas on Wednesday to do some business up there as well. So, you know, we'd like to have a decision before then, but time will tell.
Dean, why do you think, and Dave, why do you think it is that the public didn't get on board with your idea of getting sponsorship from the government?
I think the public, there's been some misinformation. So first of all, we would never seek to take money off health or education or anything like that. The public perhaps didn't understand there is an event fund annually that's set down. That money is for events. We were looking for a slice of that fund, not to take money off any social community type stuff. So that's one point. The next point is we weren't looking for something for nothing. It's a bargain. We were saying to government, we will give you international profile, we'll give you visitation from around the world, GDP into the economy, potential investment opportunities, guys like Bob Arum coming down, hospitality, community benefit, feel good. You know, there's a lot of events that cater to the upper market, yachting, golf, but this is something different. We were saying we will give you all of that. In return, we need this investment. That's not something for nothing, but it sort of got all muddled, and in the end, just looking at all the comments, you know, half of them, there's a lot of haters, and we're not prepared to become pariahs in our own country just for the sake of getting some government money.
And the other side of the coin is this too, is that there's obviously a lot of comment negative, there's also a huge amount of positive comment. And there's been a lot of people having their 2 cents worth, and I've got to be honest, when you stimulate opinion like that, it's got to be a good thing. And as Dave have said, we don't want to be divisive with this, hence we want to be an all-inclusive New Zealand event where we get behind the home guy and cheer him on if we can get this event here. So we've just seen stuff in the past that's been divisive, and we don't want it to be that.
80% chance of it going overseas.
How much were you looking for from the government?
Well, that's confidential in the application, but I think it's on record that it was over $1 million. But it's all swings and roundabouts. Money you lose there, you can make up in other ways. So, as Dean has said, it's up to us to do our homework now and see, can we realistically hold this event in New Zealand, or do we take the safe bet and take it to the United States?
80% chance of it going overseas, you're saying now, Dean. Has this really just shot any chance of this kind of fight ever being held in New Zealand?
No, I don't think so at all. You know, like one of the things you've got to understand, we're in the fight business, and David and myself, we're in the business of risk mitigation, number one, but also we're in the business of problem solving. And this is just another problem we've got in front of us, and we're going to try and solve it as quickly as we possibly can. But this has come up really quickly. Don't forget, it was only 1 month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, that we were talking to Eddie Hearn to fight Anthony Joshua for the number one, to fight Anthony Joshua in England. And unfortunately what happened, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, Tyson Fury vacated the belt, and all of a sudden there's an opportunity for us to fight Andy Ruiz. So in a very short space of time, we've had to raise potentially a huge amount of money for an event that may or may not be here. It's not easy. Would we say that an event will never come here? Well, we definitely can't say that, because if Joseph was to win this thing, we're in control of it, number one, and number two, you know, with longer lead times, all things are possible. But having said that, we are mandated, if Joseph wins this fight, to fight David Hay. Now, there's no way we can hold that fight in New Zealand, because the money on the table in England for both Hay and Joseph would be enormous. And we need to cut a deal, or we need to control the fight up there. After that, we're free of obligation. But you know, David and myself, and particularly David, and I agree with him on this, has said that the biggest and best thing we can do for Joseph Parker, for his long-term future and for our company's long-term future, is to get him in the ring with Anthony Joshua and get everyone a big payday. So if that was to happen and Joseph was to beat Anthony Joshua, the world's his oyster. And of course, we're talking right now with the biggest promoters in the world, with Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum. You're talking about guys who turn over hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Bob Arum alone was involved in a $1 billion promotion last year with Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. It was a fight David and myself went to. They did $74 million on the gate. This is a global sport. We'd like to think we can have Joseph here for this fight, and if it's not for this, maybe in the future, but you'd have to say, given the sheer size of what happens overseas, maybe not.
Hang on.
Just getting back to the withdrawal of the bid, if you guys believe there's such a major upside for the country, and you have had quite a bit of positive feedback from the population, is there any other reason why a little bit of negative blowback is deterred this bid or not? Is there any other reason here?
I think it was clear that had the government made an offer, and if we accepted that offer, we would have still had to charge pay-per-view television, tickets, we'd have still charged the public to make it work. And as soon as we went and charged for the TV, there'd be a large section of society that would have us for breakfast. And we're not willing to be pariahs in our own country. It's better to do it another way.
Dean, if it doesn't happen here in Auckland, have you got a location in America sorted?
If it doesn't happen here in New Zealand, it won't be us that's controlling the promotion. It'll be Bob Arum from Top Rank. Now, he's talked about LA, which is where Andy Ruiz comes from. He's got an office and he's very active in Las Vegas. We're going to Las Vegas this week for the Manny Pacquiao fight. And then he also did a promotion only a month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, with a guy called Canelo Alvarez. He's very good friends with Jerry Jones. David and myself had a good chat with Bob, I think 2 weeks ago. And he was saying him and Jones get on well, and that Canelo Alvarez, appealing to an Hispanic market, picked up 57,000 people through the gate. This is a big deal to Bob from he runs a lot of Mexican fighters, so he understands the market, and to be fair, he probably developed the market up in America for the Hispanic market. Andy Ruiz is obviously of Mexican descent, and it'd be a big deal for him to win the heavyweight championship of the world, simply because they've never had a heavyweight champion. I think they've had something like 57, 58 world champions. In Mexico, one of the biggest sports that they have is boxing. So, we can quite easily walk offshore, take no risk, and, just see this thing go well. But we really want to do this here from an historical point of view. We like the fact that Joseph Parker, when he walks out, gets a massive cheer from a packed out stadium, and we just try to make the decision as whether we can do it in a fiscally responsible way.
And if the fight happens in New Zealand, where would you like to hold it?
That's up in the air. Like there's various options on the table, and we just weigh them up on merit. But the first step is for us to model whether we can do it here and how we would do it.
Does Joseph care about location, either here or in
He does.
Yes. He would love to have it here.
What's the time frame? When do you have to make it?
Well, look, Bob said we've got until November 5, and you're going to be with us, Pat, up in Las Vegas, so maybe we'll make the decision up there. We'd like to try and get it done before that, but the reality is this is up in the air. And as we've said, going back 2-3 weeks ago, when we weren't sure whether we were going to be fighting Anthony Josh, we weren't going to be fighting Andy Ruiz, or maybe Klitschko at that time could have been a contender for the number 2 spot, because he's a number 2 in the WBO. The situation continues to be fluid.
Have you still got support from 18, and is that safe under the new mayor?
Look, AT did step up, and they had a clear appreciation of the benefits. Again, it's not money for nothing. Global profile for Auckland, visitors into Auckland, GDP into the Auckland economy, meeting potential investors, community benefit, feel good. And so they did step up, and frankly, if it wasn't for 80, we probably wouldn't even be here today. We'd already be up in the United States.
How hard is it for Joseph Parker to be able to actually prepare for any kind of fight with so much uncertainty?
It's pretty simple, really. Have a think about this. With what he's going to do, he knows 100% he's fighting Andy Ruiz. He knows 100% that he's going to be fighting inside the next 3 to 4 months, and most importantly, he knows that he's getting in a 7x7 metre boxing ring. All it comes down to is where is that fight going to take place, as opposed to, is this going to be here? What does my opponent look like? So they're preparing very hard right now for this. They're working towards a December 10 date, and while we've still got a 20% chance of pulling this in, they will continue to do so until we tell them differently.
As Joseph gets older, he gets immune to all this carry-on because, boxing, and he's very mentally tough. It's one of his strong points, and so he just sticks to the job at hand, which is training.
The home advantage is such a major thing. You need to look at the Wallabies at Eden Park, for example. How disappointing is it for you guys and for Joseph not to have that home advantage?
Well, here's the deal. It ain't
No,
over
we
yet.
haven't said
20% chance.
There you go.
It's not over yet.
One of the things we do is solve problems.
The thing is, in this business, Dean wore the silver fern and Martin wore the silver fern and did it under pressure and know what it's like when the chips are down to have that home support at home. So that's probably in the back of their minds, I think, say a little bit how important it is. They know what Joseph will go.
I mean, we could work out that we're going to make a small loss, and we might decide to do it here anyway, just for the home advantage, take the win, and the next fight will be gigantic. So at the end of the day, it's Dean and I will make a call in the coming days.
How important is that home advantage to his chance of taking the title?
Well, look, I spoke to a bloke yesterday and they talk about in rugby union it might be worth 15%. If you have a look at the NRL, I think if you bet all year on the team that's going to win at home, it's about 65% chance of you actually going to get your money back. So if it gives Joseph an extra 5%, it's worth being here. If it gives him an extra 10%, well, it's really hard to say no. But again, we keep coming back to this. It's about fiscal responsibility, and this is a massive event. And our biggest problem is if we had the years lead into this, we'd shrug our shoulders and get on with it. But our biggest problem is a very, very short lead in time.
So you are prepared to take a loss, perhaps, to stage ahead?
We'll look at all options, and if there was a small loss, we'd have to discuss and say
or a large loss.
What are the pros and cons of the home advantage versus the loss, and what does the future look like? So at this point, we're not confirming anything. We just got to go do our homework.
Given Joseph really wants to fight here, would you be prepared to take the loss?
Well, that's a decision for David and myself to make. You know, we've got a number of other events on now. We're very, very busy, and it comes down to are we prepared to take a loss and how big could it be, or you know, how do we think we make money on this thing? But the biggest thing, and this is what most people don't get, right? Everyone says to me, "Oh, you make all your money off the pay-per-view." That's not true. Right? This is a small country. If we're in America or England where they're doing 500,000 pay-per-view buys, that's a correct statement. We don't do that. We have to get 4 streams of revenue correct. You know, number 1 is sponsorship. That's the one you get first and foremost. You lock it in. Number 2 is corporate hospitality. That's tables of 10, which you guys have seen on a regular basis. Number 3 is GA Gate, and number 4 is your pay-per-view. You have to do really well against all 4 just to break even or make money. Now we're going into this with a fight that we've never seen the size of before, including Tour Cameron. This dwarfs Tour Cameron in terms of cost and obviously in terms of profile as well. This has got a real global presence about it. So, and it's a short nature of the beast to put it together. So we'll be looking at all angles. And you know, Dave and myself, there are other options and there are easier options, and when that is going offshore. You know, so that's from a financial point of view.
Dean raised a very good point. There's some more misinformation around, and some of the sentiment was, if we dare accept government money, we can't charge pay-per-view, we should be on free to air. I think what people are missing is that the New Zealand Rugby Union and New Zealand Cricket get paid massive amounts of money each year for the broadcast rights. We don't. So, you know, you've got to consider that. We're not paid an annual giant fee from a broadcaster for TV rights like the New Zealand Rugby Union. So the public are paying, by and large, through subscription or whatever for those other codes. With boxing, especially huge shows like this, pay-per-view is an important revenue stream, and we ideally needed that in addition to the sponsorship, but it became clear to us that it would be unpalatable for many if we were to do both.
And if we're in a business of risk mitigation, you've got to look at where's our guaranteed revenue. Well, guaranteed revenue, number 1, once you sign a contract, is sponsorship. And that's why that's such a big deal, and what we're talking about is risk mitigation and get that sponsorship up front, because if you haven't got that, you're behind the 8 ball all the way through. And what a lot of amateurs do in this game, right? And we like to think we're professional, we usually take our time. I'll give you an example. To get the NRL 9s up and running, it was 3 years. To get the Super 10s up and running, which Dave has managed to do over the last bloody 3 years, it's a 3-year lead-in. And when you've got that sort of time, it's quite easy. But when you're taking boxing, which you know, it's a difficult sport to get up and running, and sponsorship's hard, but we're working on it, and we're quite, you know, like I said, we're a 20% chance to start here, but also, you know, we've got to get that sponsorship up, so we're on it.
Past Joseph Parker, he's the young man, but past his fighting days, does Duco expect to be a boxing company past Joseph Parker?
Sure. We promote a welterweight named Jeff Horn. He's the number 1 pound-for-pound boxer in Australia. I think he's ranked number 2 or number 1 in the world now by the IBF. And we're not looking to sign mediocrity, we're looking for the cream of the crop. We have the top boxer in New Zealand and number 1 prospect in the world, Joseph Parker, and in Australia, Jeff Horn, welterweight division, he's unbeaten. The same division as Pacquiao, Mayweather and so forth. And we're growing that stable. So I think there's a real opportunity with Polynesian athletes in particular, with the bone density, twitch fibre, there's a real opportunity to tap in. There's a huge talent base in New Zealand and the Pacific Islands, and there's a lot of talent there. They just need the right environment, promoters, managers, trainers, etc. So certainly our vision is to grow the sport in this country.
And how's Joe going in his preparation and lead up to this bout?
I spoke to him this morning and yesterday morning, and he said it's the best camp he's had to date. He's taken on a new weight fitness trainer, and he said the guy's amazing, the best he's worked with, and he's feeling in a really good headspace. He's not worrying about any of this.
Just on the government funding, was there sort of the criteria was only a bit shaky, they don't like to have pay-per-view. Is this a chance? You're sort of cutting your losses a bit?
Look, there was no discussion or anything in the criteria that talks about pay-per-view TV. We think that any time we apply to any organisation for either, and we don't like to call it funds, we like to call it for a partnership where they give us money and we in return give them benefits which they value. And we think every time we go to a organisation, and be it commercial or be it government, we put up a case that we think we fit the criteria, and given the fact that we are the biggest events company in this country and growing incredibly rapidly both here and internationally, we think we understand how to fulfil those criteria. So yeah, we thought that this event would fit. This is a major event. It is called Major Events New Zealand, but just on the basis of the fact it's become a political hot potato, and as Dave says, we want this to be inclusive and not divisive, we don't want to do that.
I think a couple of statements that Stephen Joyce made were a little bit silly with respect. He put out there that if we gave you money X amount, and then in return they'd want profile, visitation, investment opportunities, hospitality, it would go into the contract. We'd have to deliver all of that. So they give us some money, we deliver all of that, and then he suggests that we give all the money back. It was effectively wanting a partnership with us, a sponsorship for free. So it was not us being the freeloaders. To me, that's freeloading. Reap the benefit of the event, but then get the money back. And so, I just got a bit fed up and frustrated in the end, and it's been a difficult decision, but I think it's the right decision to withdraw.
So is it that perhaps that government funding wouldn't actually have roots for you?
Well, if they want to support the event, and if they don't.
What it comes down, look, and this is one of the things that people don't understand. To say something in the media and to say something in casual conversation is way different to firstly an offer coming through followed by what's called a term sheet. And that term sheet details exactly how that offer is made up and what commitments go against it. So we didn't receive an offer and we didn't receive a term sheet. So before we did, we thought, what the heck, we'll just pull out of the process and put this back into the court of public opinion and go, we want it, as we said, to be inclusive. We want everyone to be behind Joseph, whether it's here or overseas.
So this is also a big fight for Ruiz. I guess obviously his camp, his managers, they're probably asking for a big purse.
Of course they are.
Give us an indication on where things are at with that.
Seven-figure, including the person costs, in New Zealand dollar amount, it's seven-figure sum.
And don't forget, it's US dollars.
Yeah.
And does it make you angry that the government's backed the America's Cup and events like that in the past?
No. It goes back to the bargain. The government should be looking at the benefits versus investment and making decisions based on that. And we think our events stacked up solidly based on our collective experience. We've never been supported by government, but this one certainly, in our opinion, stacked up solidly.
Right, we'll have one more question.
You said it was above $1 million in funding. Is it above $2 million?
No.
Above, can you give us that ballpark?
Take his figure and mine now as to where it should be.
Yeah. If you hold the event in New Zealand, we also have local fighters on the card.
Yes.
Right, we'll end it there. Thank you very much for your attendance today, and we will not be making any further comments today, and hope you have a good weekend. You guys got a few great years.
Thank you.
Just so it's the dog with you. Anticipate that. Here we are. Yes or no? No.